faces, bright and early for their daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. Went to school and I was very nervous. No one knew me, no one knew me.
Police have widened their search for the missing teenager, Meredith Laval, for her involvement in the bombing of a post office.
Where is she? I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. Find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Mad
Here. That was nice.
We love movies. We live and breathe movies.
Thank you, Toronto Film Festival. It is a wonderful, wonderful place to come as a filmmaker.
I love the movie. If you want to talk about it after, I'll be walking around, probably around Chinatown or whatever.
Enjoy the film, guys, and thank you again, and thank you for having us. It's so great to be in my home country of Canada. Thank you, thank you.
Morning, afternoon.
All right. Yes, good afternoon and welcome to the press conference for American Pastoral, film based on Philip Roth's Pulitzer Prize winning novel about a seemingly perfect American family whose existence goes into turmoil during a very turbulent time. With us today, I'm very happy to introduce to my left, Ewan McGregor, who's the director and the star of the film, plays the role of Seymour Swede Lvov. Next to Ewan, we have Jennifer Connelly, who plays Swede's wife, Dawn. Next to Jennifer, we have Dakota Fanning, who takes on the role of Mary, the daughter who goes through a radicalization process throughout the film. Next to Dakota, we have Uzo Aduba, who plays the part of Vicky, the assistant to Swede and his dad. Next to Uzo, we have David Strathairn, who takes on the role of Nathan Zuckerman, the storyteller in the movie and actually the alter ego to Philip Roth, I would imagine. Next to David, we have Valerie Curry, who takes on the role of Rita Cohen. And last but certainly not least, Tom Rosenberg, one of the producers of the film. We have mic runners there, so if you put up your hand, I'll take a mic to you. First of all, I'll throw it over to you, Ewan. Tom mentioned last night that Philip Roth has seen the film. I wonder if you could share some of his thoughts and what he thought of the transitioning of the book to the big screen.
Yeah, it was very important to me that Philip liked the book. I spent a great deal of time in the novel. I was given the job of directing the movie late 2014, and we started shooting September 2015. And in those 9 months, I very much lived in Philip Roth's novel. I read it whenever I had a moment to be reading. There's a really great recording of the book by Ron Silver that was on whenever I was driving or in a hotel room or flying, or I sort of lived in his novel. And somewhere in the middle of August, I guess, before we started shooting, I sort of put it down, and I really felt that there was a moment to trust that I'd imbued as much as I could from Philip's novel, and now focus absolutely on our film script, which I thought was a brilliant adaptation of Philip Roth's novel. Thank you, Jennifer. And so at that point, I focused on the script. So then the next months of my life was the shooting and the post-production, and now the release of the film. And so for last week, when Tom phoned me to say that he'd heard from Philip and that Philip very much liked the film and felt that we'd captured his novel, it was a huge relief. I hadn't realized how much I'd been carrying the fear of maybe the fact that he wouldn't like it, because it was very important to me to feel that we captured the essence of his novel, and he expressed to us that he thought that we had.
Tom, you mentioned at the screening last night that the script was originally written, 14 years ago, you're saying, or 2003, thereabouts?
No, yes, it was.
It's taken a long time to bring this to the screen. Do you want to fill us in a little on that process?
Well, it was unusually long. It's a difficult subject matter. It's our third adaptation of a Philip Roth novel. We had previously done The Human Stain and The Dying Animal. It's a little bit like a roller coaster, and every time that we thought we had bad news, it turned out to be good news, and it eventually led us to Ewan. And so it sort of, at a certain point, we trusted what was happening, knowing that we would make the film. We were committed to making the film. We were committed to taking on the risk that was necessary, and we believed in it, and that carried us through.
Okay, we'll open it up to questions over there.
Kerry Robertson, next to Canada. First of all, Ewan, I think you'll be glad to know that Calgary recently passed a new distracted driving law. So when you arrive for Fargo season 3, I think you'll be much safer on the roads. I want to ask you about being both actor and director on this film. Ben Stiller, Russell Crowe have all done the sort of double duty. One of the things that they've talked about is the fact that when you're directing, sometimes you're focusing so much energy on the filmmaking process, on the other actors' performances, perhaps you lose sight of your own performance. How were you able to handle both roles and make sure that you still had the energy to be the lead actor of this piece?
It's all part and parcel of the same thing, I think. I mean, I never really felt like I dropped the director role and stepped into the actor role. It was just the same thing. It felt quite seamless to me. I had 3 days at the very end of the movie where I didn't act. The funeral scene, obviously, I was in the box for an eye line for my actors, but I wasn't acting on that day. And then the 2 days that we shot the 90s reunion scene, and I felt that it was a different process. I was coming in to speak to the actors with notes and then stepping back out behind the monitor. And whereas for the rest of the movie, we were in discussion about the scene, and then we would do it again. And I was in the middle of it, in the middle of the scene, which I always believed would be a good place to direct from. And it's all to do with when you're acting, a feeling. I think we all feel it when you get the take. the scene clicks. There's a feeling on a film set, certainly amongst the actors, and usually amongst the immediate crew, the camera crew, that you're like, yeah, that's the one, and we move on. And so I've always trusted that as an actor, and I did the same here. It didn't feel to me like putting on, you know, two hats. It was one and the same thing, really.
Another question down front.
Hello, Ernesto Garraud from El Mercurio, Chile. A question for Mr. McGregor. I just want to know how difficult it was for you, the challenge of your first feature as director. I mean, in real terms, were you nervous? And what was your principal influence in terms of directing? I don't know, some director or some previous work with some filmmaker. Thank you.
I was, in answer to the first part of the story, I was very nervous. I think it's a massive responsibility to take on. Directing anything is a responsibility to the producers. In this case, it was a responsibility to Philip Roth. It was a responsibility to everybody who had read that novel and who liked that novel. And it's a responsibility to the professionals on the crew and to the cast and to myself to make sure that this film represented me in some way and started, you know, had a sort of my stamp as a filmmaker. I've always believed as myself as a filmmaker anyway. I think as actors we are. We don't just get wheeled out of our trailer onto set to say our words and wheeled off again. We are filmmakers. We are part of filmmaking. And so I was pretty sure of that I had enough experience to be able to carry it, I think. But of course you don't really know till you're there. And I was lucky to be surrounded by amazing people to help me in the crew, from my director of photography, Martin Rua, and Daniel Clancy, the designer, Lindsay McKay, our costume designer, Judy Chin, makeup designer, Jason Sika, our hair designer, with all of the designers and our, you know, the people, the creative people to be in conversation with to produce the movie. I was lucky. I had amazing people to work with, and I enjoyed it very, very much. Those early conversations right through, and then through the edit with Melissa Kent, the editor, and that was very fulfilling. The directors I drew from to direct this film are all of them. I mean, I think as an actor, we have a unique position in that we do witness lots of directors, and directors don't really get to see other directors' work, so that's a very unique thing, you know. Danny Boyle doesn't spend an awful lot of time on Martin Scorsese's film sets, you know what I mean? So they're very unique. And what makes a good director, I think, is different from one director to the next. And it's very much just about your character and who you are and how you see things and how you want it to feel on set. And so I drew from all of them. The one technical thing that I learned, I suppose, was from my very first movie director, which was Danny Boyle. And that was about rehearsing with the actors alone on the set before shooting. And it sometimes is missed out in the process. It can be seen to be a waste of time. But I know as an actor, when you walk onto a set, if you haven't rehearsed it, and you're shown a tape on the floor, and you're told this is where you start, and you're going to sit down on that chair over there when you say this line, my reaction, always verbally or non, is, how do you know? Because I want to be part of making those decisions. So I was never going to do that with this cast. And so I maintained from an early, you know, before we even started filming, I said, I'll rehearse alone with the actors, because that's where we're going to find the scene. And I had an idea. I'd worked out with Martin Rua, my DP. We'd sat for weeks. I'd say, this is how I imagine it might be, the scene. And we would talk about shots and how we might cover it and what we wanted the scene to feel like. And I was inspired by films like Leviathan and films like Force Majeure, where there's a frame and the actors tell the story within a frame. And we couldn't be quite as radical as those films in this, but I wanted it to feel like that, classic. I wanted the actors to be telling the story. So we did come up with lots of ideas, and then with the actors on set, we would usually start there. I would maybe start by saying, this is what I had imagined, and we would all, but I hope it always felt like there was a freedom to change that, and we would explore different things. And sometimes the scene was as I maybe had imagined, and oftentimes it was different. And I relied upon all the actors and Martin and all of the crew to be involved in the putting together of the scenes, which involves a sort of that's where the magic happens. You know, you can't plan out a movie and execute it like you might build a house. It doesn't work like that. It is a sort of magical happening, the creation of a scene, and everybody's involved in making that happen.
Well, maybe we'll toss it over to some of them too. Maybe Jennifer and Dakota. Can you talk a bit about working with Ewan, and was there a certain scene where things clicked in a way that you hadn't experienced before, or something that was different?
It was really a wonderful experience having that space, having the room to open things up before we had to start narrowing things down, because ultimately you have to start eliminating choices. But it's really nice at first, you know, at the beginning of the day, to be able to start by opening things up, opening up conversation. And I think we did that before we even started filming. In conversations, we'd have table reads at night and just talk through the script, and would bring our questions to the table. And that was a form of exploration. And then, as Ewan mentioned, you know, on a daily basis, we would do that more fully, you know, with playing the scenes just on our own without being watched, other than with each other. And that was really wonderful experience, because you can really breathe into it and try things that maybe you would feel too inhibited to try if you were already committing to those choices, you know. So that was a really wonderful opportunity to have for me. I really enjoyed that.
Dakota, maybe you want to weigh in on that? The relationship between Swede and Mary is one that evolves over the course of the film. At what point, or how was it interacting with Ewan as a director, as well as the main point person you were acting with?
Yeah, I think it was really a really special experience, because a lot of times, you know, when you connect with another actor in an intense way in a scene, really the only people that can ever truly understand that connection is the person that you're working with. And it's the job of the director to recognize it and be able to capture it and try and, you know, capture it so it can be transmitted into the audience, that energy. But that energy is something that I think only actors can, they're the only ones that feel it. And so to have Ewan be the person that was feeling that energy, and also be the person that was going to ultimately be in charge of editing that scene, or, you know, making sure that he knew what we felt there in order to properly be able to convey that to all of you. And I really loved getting to experience that, and I love being able to watch the film knowing that. And yeah, that's my answer.
A couple of questions down front here. Bruce?
Good afternoon, Bruce Kirkland from the Toronto Sun Media in Canada. Ewan, congratulations. But my question is for Dakota, because, hey, I'm one of the older dudes in this room right now, and I lived through the era that this movie depicts, and I remember getting radicalized, including by watching the immolation, the self-immolation of that monk, and it had a profound effect on me too. But I ended up using words to radicalize instead of bombs. I'm curious how you relate as a young person today to the kind of thing that you saw in that character in that time, and how relevant these issues are for today's world, where people are still feeling angry about the kind of society we live in.
Right. I think at the time when I was making the film, I was really thinking about it in the context of the movie and in the time that the movie takes place, and thinking about it and relating the best that I could, using the script and the words on the page to help me understand. And now I think that I have more of a perspective on it, and watching the film, and a lot of people have mentioned the parallels between now and then, and how this film perhaps highlights those parallels. And I suppose that I hope, I mean, with any film, you just hope that it moves someone, it makes them feel something, it starts a conversation, whatever that may be, it changes someone's opinion. So if this film does that for someone, in the context of today, I'm happy about that, and I think that we could probably learn that history does, in fact, repeat itself, and that, I don't know, maybe the film will make people realize that there aren't as many differences and that that's unfortunate.
Right down next to.
Good morning, Barbara Dudinska, Sita News Agency. I have a question for Ewan. Congrats on the movie, by the way, everyone. I saw it this morning. I personally found it very deep and a lot to take in the morning, but I found it very beautifully directed, so congrats on that. There was a lot of very emotional scenes, very heavy-duty scenes. I was wondering, was there one that was the hardest to direct? Thank you.
No, I don't think so. I try to avoid, I think we'll all have experienced this. There are some scenes that become the key scenes in movies, and as an actor, I've had directors come out and go, this scene is absolutely pivotal. And if we don't, and you're like, well, I can't do it now. You know, the pressure's too high. So I tried to not, I thought of all the scenes as being key, as being important. I didn't feel like this scene's more important than this one, so I have to focus more on this one. I think they're all important. And last night I was watching the film, and I really was struck by that really feels like that. Every scene that goes by is so brilliantly acted and meant, and they flow from one to the next so nicely and in an important way. There's no scene in the movie that I feel like, oh, maybe we could have left that one out. There were a couple of scenes shot that we did leave out for reasons of pacing or reasons of storytelling. And so I'm happy that what's there should be there. And it feels to me like they really are all important scenes. I'm trying to think what one was harder to shoot than another, and I can't really think of one. I don't know, maybe the actors have an answer to that, maybe rather than me. No, they were all really easy. They were.
So easy.
You have a pretty extensive theater background, and of course everyone knows you from your Emmy-winning performance as Crazy Eyes on Orange is the New Black. Now you're spreading out into big screen film. How did you come to this project, and working on it, how does that make you feel and make you want to?
Are you okay? Okay.
How did you come to the project, first of all?
Well, I read the script first that was sent, and which I really enjoyed just in terms of this chapter of American history that was being captured, the idealistic, the unraveling of the American dream, I guess is how I would sort of paint it. And then I got a phone call from Ewan one day, and I came to it primarily because there was something, I love working with passionate people and excited artists and people who have visions and ideas that make you feel compelled yourself to be a part of something. And I think that's really exciting for me as an actor to be a part of. So when we were speaking on the phone, his energy and his voice was so passionate, and it matched that which was on the page, which was a thing of, the word I guess I would use to describe it would be like change or progression. You know, you don't always get to have the privilege and the opportunity to work with people who are always excited and always feel like they want to bring a new idea to something. So that was what made me feel like, on the first level, like I wanted to be a part of it. And then the second part was, I just felt like a time in our history where we don't always get to see someone empowered in their moments from this chapter, you know, the 1960s, 70s. It was nice to see a character who has given a bit more voice, and we could see them holistically rather than just a capture.
Okay, great. We have a question right down front here and then one over there.
Hi, a question for Dakota. I wanted to know, how did you accomplish this stutter? Because you're really good at it.
Thank you. I think that was something that I was a little bit nervous for, and thought it would be a challenge. But one of the reasons that I wanted to do it, because I wanted to challenge myself. But Ewan and I talked about it, and he sent me some videos, and I just looked at so many videos of people who struggle with stuttering, and realized that it is pretty different for everyone, and it sounds different for everybody. So that made me feel a little calmer, that I had some freedom to figure out what Mary sounded like, and there wasn't any rules. So yeah, I just listened a lot, and practiced alone.
Question over here in the middle.
Hi, Fabian Winter for Latin America. I have a couple of questions for Mr. McGregor and Dakota Fanning. For Dakota, my question is in regards to Hollywood, if you could make a revolution, what would you like to change? And for Mr. McGregor, what do you think Mr. McGregor thinks as Mr. McGregor, the director, and what Mr. McGregor, the director, thinks about Mr. McGregor, the actor?
I mean, like I said, to me, it's not like two different hats. I feel like one is just an extension of the other. You know, to direct this movie was an extraordinary dream of mine, and a great challenge, and a great pleasure and joy, and but absolutely an extension of my acting work to date. And like I say, my experience of working with so many wonderful directors in the past, and being able to try my hand at it myself, you know. So I don't really think of them as being two sides of the, you know, the same, two sides of anything.
For me, there's a lot of things I would change. I'm just trying to figure out what I want to say. I think something that as I'm growing up and getting older, I've been in this business for a long time, and since I was 6 years old, it's been my whole life, and now I'm, you know, a woman, and feeling what this, what being an actor feels like as a woman and not a girl. And I think that's something I'm constantly surprised by, and I think there is a lot of conversation about it. I'm not the first person to say this, but that, you know, movies and TV shows and about women are enough and really interesting, and people want to see that, and I think that it shouldn't be so celebrated to have a movie that's about a female or about a show that's about a female, and it should be the norm, because, you know, it should be. So I think to just continue that conversation and is something that I want to do, so yeah.
David, you've been a veteran of the film festival, and you've been in a lot of productions over the years. The story of this film and the character of Nathan being the alter ego of Philip Roth, really, how did you approach the role? Did you do anything special in order to delve into the character and the storytelling? And that era also, what did that era mean to you?
First, immersed myself in the novel to try to access what I think Philip was doing. One of the extraordinary accomplishments of this film, I think, is how it has honored the novelistic form, and at the same time made it a collection of very sincere and visceral human moments. So and in many ways, I think that's what Philip was trying to do. He was trying to, he takes this family as a repository of a time, a time that has repeated itself in our country's history and you know, most societies. But that, so I immersed myself into the novel as much as I could to figure out, okay, what is the task here? And it, frankly, was a very simple one. It was to be as clean and as clear and as objective an eye, almost an innocent eye, so that, so as the writer, so to speak, you want to present something that can be, all the values and all the issues within the book are exist with as much potency as the characters themselves in the moment now. And I think that's what this film accomplishes extraordinarily. It's so uncanny, and it's very subtle. And it's in Ewan's performances and everyone's performance is both reflective of of Philip's voice, of his vision of a time, but it's also, I think, it's so incisive that it makes it very difficult and also, in a strange way, rewarding to experience this film on a very human level. So, all that said, basically, I just wanted to do as little as possible so that the audience could have a little frontispiece and maybe a little epilogue. That it opens, gives them a step in, and then slightly closes it. But it's very clever the way the script was developed and the way it was shot, that the end ends on a faceless entity who has experienced this thing, which follows Nathan's Philip's beautiful words about you get people wrong. And I think what was achieved in those two sort of universal narrative moments, and then the extraordinary, subtle and quiet, but devastating presence of Mary at the casket was something that the film accomplishes, and really, and I think you have to see it more than once to understand that. I know you asked me another question, but
It's okay, we have time for one more question over here, but before we get to that, Valerie, I don't want you to feel left out. You're also in Blair Witch, so this festival is a big deal for you. How is it to be part of this crew here? You called them a crew last night, by the way.
I know I did, yeah.
I like that, though. We're all working together.
And how has the festival been for you so far?
This is my first time at the festival, and to be here with two very different films, with two very different characters, is, I'm not really sure I can reflect on that until afterwards, how that experience is, the diversity of it. But to be sitting at this table is another very surreal experience in a series of surreal experiences that was this film for me. Being a part of this cast and working with Ewan as a director has been an incredible experience, and just being a part of the collaborative environment that Ewan facilitated, that I think, speaking for myself, made me feel so free and empowered to go to the extreme places that I know I was asked to go to. And when I look at the performances, I think everyone was asked to go to. And that everyone not only met, but exceeded those requirements and expectations. It's a stellar company to be a part of.
Okay, one more question.
Well, on top of that, let me just add, because you're here with two different parts, but in our film, it's almost like you're playing four different parts. And it's a testament to your skill as an actor that they're all Rita, but they are four very different sides of one person, and it's really a testament to you. So.
One more.
Tim Masters from BBC News. After your experience on this film, how quickly do you see yourself getting back into the director's chair?
I don't know. It's an interesting thought, because it's, on one hand, it's been the most incredible experience, and I would long to do it again. And on the other hand, it's a very costly experience, because for 16, 17, 18 months of your life, it's really like you're carrying something very precious, and it's a funny thing. It's like you're looking at a story and you're trying to be a husband and a father and a human being, and really you're focused on this thing. So it's quite a costly thing to do, and I can only assume that's why it's taken me 15 years of wanting to do it, because I had to have a story that I was so burning to tell to justify that commitment, I suppose. And so now the idea of jumping straight back into it, I couldn't. I couldn't do it unless I have that story. Like, I was so lucky to get this story to do. It meant so much to me over the 3 years of waiting to film it as an actor. It just grew and grew in my heart and soul that I wanted to do it. And so I hope very much to find the next story. I don't know, I'm not going to rush into it. I'm not going to, like, rush that. I hope the story will find me, or I'll find the story, and that I do get the opportunity to do it again, because it's so wonderful. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do.
Okay, American Pastoral is a TIFF special presentation. It had its world premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival last night. It will be released in theaters October 21st and nationwide release October 28th. Thank you all for coming. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.